Okay.
All right. You want to say hello to them, or am I going to start?
Oh, you go ahead. You have so much to cover. They got
I
all
do.
semester to deal with me.
All right. So for those of you who do not know me, I am Tammy Bean. I'm the Director of Community Service Programs here at Cedar Crest College, and I'm also the Ethical Life Site Coordinator. My role today is to talk to you about the course from a pretty global perspective, and I will talk to you specifically about the site component. You should know already that through an email that I sent to everyone last week, that the sites, due to the current challenges with the pandemic, all the sites will be virtual this semester. They will not be the sites that are listed on your registration or on your schedule. They will be sites that I am currently working with to ensure that we have plenty of opportunity for our students to be engaged in the community. So I'm going to go through my presentation. You will have the chance to ask questions. I will show you where things are on your course site in a variety of different ways. But the first thing that I want to talk to you about is just the fact of what the course is about. So the Ethical Life course is a 3-credit course. We have had an ethics requirement for over 25 years here at the college. And prior to its current format, it was a 3-hour lecture with 100 of your closest friends in your junior year on a Thursday night. Some students liked it, many students did not. Some faculty members liked it, many faculty members did not. And at the time, when the college was going through a review of all of their courses and how things were working and what things were doing, the then president, who was President Blaney at the time, asked 2 faculty members to reevaluate the course and to make it something that students would have a little bit more opportunity for engagement of the topics and the material. So the 2 faculty members at the time sat down and worked on it and created the Ethical Life course that we now have. What this course does is it gives you the opportunity to put into practice what we talk about in the classroom, what you're reading about, what you're writing about. And if you put into direct action that work. Some people call it community engagement. Some people call it service learning. It's now getting lots and lots of different terminology. Some people call it community-based learning and research. So the name of what this type of work is called is changing. But one of the things you want to remember is that, yes, you are providing a service to an organization. That doesn't necessarily mean that you're a volunteer in a very specific way. What it means for us is that you're an engaged learner. So you are actually taking the information that you're learning from class, you're putting into practice within the community agency that you're typically working with, and then you're taking that information that you're learning from that community engagement and putting that and trying to deepen what you're learning through the reading and the writing that you're doing. So there's a lot more than strictly being a volunteer, because there is that academic connection. But unfortunately, most of our community agencies, from a language perspective, most of our community agencies and organizations will call you volunteers. Even all of the online ones that we work with, that will typically be the terminology that they use. So I'm going to share my screen so that you can all see, and you're going to see 10 gazillion things on my screen. That's how it works for me. So what you should be able to see at this point is your course shell. And in your course shell is a whole lot of information about the community partnership site work. So when you go in, if you go to the modules section of your course, in there is your syllabus, information about the weekly readings and assignments that you'll have to do. The important thing at this moment that I'm going to talk about is this section where it says learning agreement and hours log forms. This first form that I'm pulling up is the learning agreement. And the learning agreement is basically a contract between you and the site that you are scheduled to work with. As with any site, and as with any contract, you want to make sure that you fill this out as completely and thoroughly as possible. So when you get to this portion of what you have to do to hand in this form, you will download this form and then you will add the information that you need to. So your name, your address, your email address, and your phone number. Here on the agency phone, agency address, all of that information, that will be provided to you once you have completed the selection of your online site, of your virtual site. And I will give you that information in a few minutes on how you're going to do that. Once you figure out which online site you're going to work with, you need to put in this form the task description. So what are you going to do when you work with the site? Even though it's online, we still want you to have a concept of what it is that you're doing. You will need to fill that information into this form and put down the dates. You'll put down that information. Then there's a part here that says student schedule of hours. That's where you are going to set up for yourself a schedule of how you're going to complete the requirement for this course. The requirement for the course is 28 hours. And while that doesn't sound like a whole lot of time, once you get into your semester, you're going to want to make sure that you schedule your hours over the course of the semester. There are going to be some questions throughout the semester that specifically ask things related to your community partnership site. And so if you're doing all of your hours in one fell swoop, it's going to be a little harder for you to be able to answer some of those questions. So we really ask that you take the time to put the work in for these sites over the course of the semester. Some of the sites that we work with, you can do a lot of hours one week and do just a few the next week. Other hours are going to ask you to be more consistent because of the work that they need you to do. So if you're scheduling yourself out for your hours, you'll be able to get the requirement in. Based on the information that we currently have, you will get started with your site and actually doing the hours by week 3 of the semester. So this week, we're just in class, you're just making that selection. Next week, once that selection has been made, I will then provide you with follow-up information on what you need to do to get started. And then week 3 of the semester, you'll be able to start your hours. Knowing that, you will need to take those 28 hours and divide that up over 12 weeks instead of over 14. Once you figure out the schedule of hours, you'll put that information on this form and you'll write down the days and times that you're going to be there for your time. So if it's going to be Mondays from 2 to 4, because it's right after class, you're going to write Mondays 2 to 4. That way I have a concept of what you're doing and how you're planning on getting your work done. If you take 28 hours and you divide that up by the 12 weeks, you're at about 2.5 hours at most that you have to do a week to be able to complete the requirement for the course. Once you've filled everything out on the bottom half of this form, you're going to go back up to the top and you're going to sign it and date it. Because this course and the agency work is now all virtual, you will then need to have a digital confirmation. So you won't be talking to somebody specifically about getting a signature and a date. You will actually be getting a digital confirmation from the site that you are set up and ready to get started. So for example, if you are to work with the Smithsonian Institute, they have about 4 or 5 different things that you can do with them. When you go in and sign up, they will then create a profile for you, and that will then be your confirmation. They will also send you an email that says that you are set up and ready to go. This is how you get started. So those are the things that you will use as your signature for the digital confirmation for this particular form. You will then upload this form. You will upload the digital confirmation into the system. And you'll do that through Canvas. All of that information is in there. This form is due back into the system by Friday, February 19th. It's important that you get this back so that I know that you've set up yourself and you're getting started on your hours with the online site that you're scheduled to work with. So please make sure that you do that by that deadline. And that information is in the system, and you'll see where you need to get that in a few minutes. So that's the learning agreement. Sorry, went to the wrong thing. The other form that is in this section of the general information is the hours log. And this is how you will keep track of the hours that are required for this course. And once this loads, so this is a basic document that we maintain. This is the only form that you can use to provide us the information that we need on the hours that you've completed. So don't recreate this form in your own way. This is the form. You need to download it to your machine so you can fill it in. And you want to keep track and use this as you go along. The one thing that I would ask you to be cautious of is if you're going in and you're doing something for a half hour and you list that amount of time and you end up using more lines than what this particular form has, I'm going to ask you to then download a second form and upload that. Last semester, we had a lot of people that used the back, they used additional papers, they used other things, and it became really hard for us to follow that information. Like they used this form at the beginning, and then they got to a point where they had too many entries into the form that they didn't have enough form left. So I'm going to ask that you pull down a second form and you continue to use this style form. They were still using it, but it was on the back side and it got a little bit confusing. So I'm going to ask that you be conscious of that. So this form is really easy to fill out. You'll put your name, you will put the site that you're scheduled to work with. And then when you get there, you'll see that there's a whole bunch of blank lines for you to fill out. So you'll put the date that you are working with that particular site, the time that you signed in, the time that you signed out, a brief description of the activity that you were doing. So one of the things that students had the chance to do last semester, and students will have the chance to do this semester again, is you will have the opportunity to actually read various books in various ways so that individuals who have struggles with their own vocal work have a way, and they may be using some type of digital technology, they have a way to have a human voice that becomes a little bit more common for them than the digital voice. So if you are, maybe you read Dr. King's letter from a Birmingham jail. Maybe that's what you did that day. You can write read blank excerpt, whatever it is that you did. Then you will do a total number of hours of how many hours that you did for that day. If you worked with your site from 1 to 4, you would actually total that up to be 3 hours. Be careful that whatever times you're putting in here equal the time that you put in this total hours today column. We've had many students, and this became a challenge last semester, we had many students who put their time in and they rounded up, or they didn't correctly assess how much time they did, and then they ended up short for the number of hours that they needed to do for the course. If you don't do 28 hours, you cannot pass the class. There's no ifs, ands, or buts there. So you need to make sure that you are putting in the number of, that the time you were there, the time that you left, and you total up those number of hours correctly. This next column here says total hours to date. So you will keep a running total of how many hours you have completed so far. This column is really important to my office twice during the semester. The first time that I look at this particular column and look at this form is at midterm. And by midterm, you need to complete a minimum of 9 hours. And for us, I need this form back by February 29th, because I have to have all of my midterm grades in for the sites by the following Friday, which I think is the 5th of March. So you have to keep a running total of how many hours. So I look at it at midterm. Again, this form will get uploaded. You won't have to do any documentation at that point from your site. I just need to know how many hours you've done. The second time that this column is important is at final. You will have until 4 o'clock on Saturday, May 1st, to get this final log uploaded into the course. The reason for that is you will have until 10 p.m. on Friday, April 30th, to complete all of your hours with your Ethical Life site. The reason that we go until 10 p.m. is because we could potentially have classes until 10 that go until 10 p.m. on the last day of classes. But you do only have until 10 p.m. because there are no finals with this class. So it's really important that everything has to be finished by that last day of class. We give you until the next day to get your hours in, because we know that sometimes it's really hard to get the paperwork in. However, you do have to have everything finished by the last day of classes. This last column here, it says outside hours initials. Because everything is virtual this semester, you do not need to do any outside hours. So when you get this form or you download this form, you can cross out the spot that says outside hours initials, because you will not need it. When you scroll down to the bottom of this document, down here, it has different colors. If I was handing you a physical piece of paper, the paper has different colors to it. But what you can do when you print out your own copy of these forms, you can put in the date of when the midterm is due, which again is Friday, February 20. I said the 29th. There are not 29 days this year. Friday, February 28th. No, that's not right either. See, it's always good to have a calendar nearby. It'll be Friday the 26th of February. I apologize for that. So Friday, February the 26th of February, that's when the midterm log is due, and it is due, and you have to have 9 hours completed. So you can write that on that form. Oh, somebody asked if you can go over. Absolutely, absolutely. Any hours over the 28 absolutely will be part of documentation that I have to do for the Ethical Life class. For I have a report that I actually have to do every semester or every year on the Ethical Life hours. There are some sites where once you get to a certain point in the semester, you will, once you get to a certain number of hours, they'll tell you, oh, these won't be used for whatever the organization is doing, but you can continue to help us with our research. So you will continue even if you've met their minimum requirement of hours. And that information will be given to everybody based on which site you select. It's too hard in this format to do something like that to give you the details of each individual site. So again, sorry about that. It will be Friday, February 26th that the midterm is due, and you have to have 9 hours done. And then you'll, again, this final copy is due to me by Saturday, May 1st, with the last day that you complete any hours, Friday, April 30th. Those dates I know are correct. So we had that one question about completing more hours than what you need, which is fabulous. Love hearing when people want to do that. Any other questions about the information so far? I see that there's something else in the chat. If you have any other questions regarding those two documents that I showed to you, overall thought process about the course, you put that in the chat. Awesome. I know it takes a little bit of time to type, so I'm going to move on to the next portion. And this is probably going to be the part of the course that you may have a lot more questions about. So again, when you go to your modules and you go to the course overview material, there is a section called Ethical Life Site Selection Process. This document gives you all the information that you need regarding site selection. One of the things that will be added to this section of the course is I will upload all of the options that we have for the spring semester. That information's not fully finalized yet, so I'm still working on getting those, but you will get it in this format. You'll also get it in an email. So what you will need to do is I will be providing all of you, every single student who is in the Ethical Life class, as well as we have a professional ethics class in the business department that also uses these same sites. So all of you will get a document, will get an email, and in that email, it will go through exactly what you need to do. So it'll list the link that you'll need, it'll list dates and times of when things need to be completed. But in the document of virtual community engagement sites, you will actually review that to select which site you actually are most interested in based on the descriptions that will be provided to you. Again, this list will be provided to you via email. When I send the full email out, it will also be in the modules under virtual community engagement site selection. So it'll be in that section. And then I will also put in an announcement that the email has been sent in your course. So I'll do that as well. So what you'll want to do is once you get that list, you'll want to research what you would actually be doing. You want to check out the websites of those organizations to see if you have the skills, the technology, language, anything that would necessarily be necessary for you to do the work that they have for our students. Most of the ones, most everybody could do. We had a couple last semester where individuals needed skill in doing some photo editing. Well, if you don't have the skill to do photo editing, because we were doing some photo editing of photos from people whose photos got damaged through fire or through flood. Well, if you don't have that skill, you really can't sign up for that particular one. So you want to make sure you know, can you meet whatever the requirements are for somebody to do the work with that site? There's one site where you actually have to download a system onto your computer. Some people aren't comfortable doing that. So you want to make sure you know whether or not that's necessary for you to do it. Once you've done that, in the email that I send, there will be a link from a sign-up genius that'll be sent to you in the email by Wednesday, this Wednesday, the 27th by 5 p.m. You will then go to that sign-up genius, go in, log in, and select whichever site it is that you want. You can only select one site. You cannot select multiple. So that's why you want to make sure you do your research beforehand. Once you get that sign up genius, you have until Sunday, the 31st of January to make your selection. So you want to make sure that's done by noon on Sunday. What will happen is after the sign up genius closes on January 31st, I will then work to make sure that everybody has signed up who needed to sign up. And then I will provide you with a confirmation email by the end of the day on the 1st of February. Crazy to say this, but that's next week. So on the 1st of February, you will receive your confirmation email. And in that email, it will then give you the directions of what the next steps are for you to begin the process of applying to be a volunteer for your selected site. We'll also give you details on whether or not you need additional training that will have to happen. It will also give you details on what you'll need to do to find the digital confirmation that you'll need that says, hey, you're in the site now, this is what you need to do. It'll give you all of those details. Any questions about the selection of your virtual community engagement site? Will there be limits on how many students can work at a site? If so, is it first come, first serve? Yes. So great question. Thank you for asking. Yes, there will be limits on how many students can work at the site. Most of the sites, we've tried to do 10 people at the site, and we actually have more spaces at our sites than we have students that are in all the classes that need this opportunity. But for most sites, it's between 5 and 10 people per site, and we have around 9 different sites this year. Last year we had a couple of sites that we found that last semester we had a couple of sites that we found that just does not work. And that's part of the reason, the idea of first come, first serve. Yes, that's exactly what we do. That's part of the reason why I tell you what time the information will go out. So you will get the email first, and that email will go out to everyone at the same time, and that'll go out around 5 o'clock on Wednesday. Then what will happen is once I have that email out, I will then add it to the modules and add it to the announcements. The challenge with that is I'd have to add it to the announcements one by one. So that's why we do the email first, because then everybody gets it at the same time. That's a really good question. Thanks for asking it. Any other questions? Because that was a good one. Awesome. All right. So when you go into the modules part of your course, you will see that there's a whole bunch of other information in here. One of the pieces that is in here as well is the Community Partnership Handbook. This is everything that I just talked about, but it's in written form. So you'll be able to pull this document up if you have questions about the site process, what it means, what it looks like. I'm going to ask you to go to the handbook first. Doesn't mean you can't ask myself or ask your faculty member any questions. It just means that I'm going to ask you to go there first, because the answer may be there. If you don't seem to get the answer out of these documents that are on your course site, then I ask you to absolutely reach out to me. I have worked with this course for quite a number of years. I know Maynard has worked with this course for quite a number of years. So we probably have the answer, but all of these documents were put together with the idea and thought process that these were for you to be able to use and resource in a lot of different ways. So all of the information about our community placements are here. What I will say is that this handbook is really focused from our face-to-face sites that we have worked with in the past. There are some changes that have been made specific to the virtual experiences, but there may be some things that you look at and you go, oh, well, that doesn't make any sense. It may be because it was really focused on the face-to-face experiences. Like I said, I made some changes, but it might not have been enough. The other thing that I have when it comes to the site piece, and I know this may sound a little strange, but one of the things that we want you to be aware of is definitely still keeping with our policy of confidentiality. So we do ask that you minimize, and not even minimize, that you don't talk about your service site experiences, especially if they deal with people, that you don't post that on any social networking sites. You know, some people like to blog about different things. That's fine that you do that, but during the time that you're doing this work, we ask that you keep confidential what you're doing and who you're doing it with. If you are going to talk about this experience or write about this experience, we want you to do that really focused through the course itself. So you will have writings that you will be required to complete. You will have class discussions that you will complete. And so you may be asked, what are you doing with the site? How does it connect with the material that you're talking about and you're reading about, which is fabulous. What you want to do is make sure that if you talk about your experiences, that you're talking about them in a general way so that nobody can identify anything specifically. And you don't have to worry about pictures and that kind of stuff, because those kinds of things don't happen in the same way in the virtual world as they would in a face-to-face experience. So those are the pieces that I have to cover. I'm going to hang around so that if there are any additional questions, people can ask them. I will answer them through the chat. But I will turn it over to Maynard.
Could you keep up share screen and please go to weekly readings and assignments?
You got it, sir.
You're the best. You will see, everybody, that for next week, you are to read chapter 1 in the Weston book and follow the prompts in the writing assignment. Very good. Like the circle, that's nice. And then write 400 words or more, but 400 words minimum. Notice it's double space, New Times Roman 12-point font, as is explained in the syllabus under writing assignments. And then when you have it ready, you will submit it to under assignments. Ta-da! What could be simpler and more fun, I ask. And so that's going to be our routine each week. Each week you're going to have another writing assignment that's due, and it's always due before the class starts at 1 p.m. on Mondays, lest it be late, and we don't want that. So there you are. Do you have any questions on that? We're doing swimmingly here. Yes, indeed. That's really all I got, just to make sure you knew what was coming up for the next week. And next week, I'll be sending you another Zoom meeting notification, a link. And the following week, when we're actually in the classroom, I will start doing Teams. And so you just get it sent regularly through Teams instead of Zoom.
What I pulled up is the syllabus, and you can get to it through a multitude of ways. But when you go to the syllabus, it'll give you all the sections that are being taught this semester. It'll give you my contact information if you have any questions specifically to site work. There's also an email specifically for the Ethical Life course. So if you have questions that you want to send, that way you can do that. You can also send it to me directly. Here it will give you what the requirements are for the course. So you have the site work, which I went over all of that information. Then you have participation and attendance, and participation is still important. This course is based on discussion, and it's really important that we have you here as a person in the discussion. With us being virtual this week and next week, definitely, the chat feature will be an important aspect of ensuring that you are actually here. We would love to see your faces as well, but we also understand that not everybody's able to do video. We understand that. But participation and attendance are going to be a component of it. So be aware of that. This class is going to run synchronously. So you want to make sure that you don't go, I'll just watch the video later, because these classes are not recorded. This first one is, because of the fact that it's just general overview of the course, but all the other classes will not be recorded, so that people can feel open and free to be able to discuss what the topics are without being concerned about something else being said. And so to maintain confidentiality, we do not record it. But if you are unable to attend the class does happen synchronously. So you want to be aware of that and what that means for you, to get the material and information. And then that last component of the course is the writing assignments that Maynard talked about. So it's one assignment that is due each week. So you want to be aware of that. And then there's the grading policy, and it tells you what the weight is for each portion of the course. So you have 25% of your grade is the site work, 25% is participation and attendance, then 50% of your grade is the writing assignments. So anybody have questions about that? Any dates that I talked about, all of that information are here on this document. And the Friday, February 26th one is correct on here. I just can't do my dates when I write up my paper. But all of those dates, how that will work, all of that information is available here. And then it has policies related to attendance and COVID, face coverings once we're in the classroom, how we will deliver the instruction for this course this semester, honor philosophy, class protocol. So all the typical things that are on a syllabus, all of that is also in here. One of the things you want to be aware of is the Canvas system that we use for our courses changed their plagiarism piece and went from what we used to use to the system called Turnitin. So please be aware of that change. That is new. So that's what I have, Maynard.
We're good unless anybody else has some more questions. This could be an all-time record, Tammy.
I feel like I don't have quite as much to say.
I know you didn't have to cover the 5 Bs and
right. I don't have to cover harassment. I don't have to cover safety. I don't have to cover dress code. So I don't have quite as much to say. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen now. Yeah.
Last call for questions. And certainly if you should think of something after we're done here, feel free to contact either Tammy or I, depending what the nature of the question is, and we'll get back to you as soon as we can. Anything else, Tammy?
That's what I have. That's what I have.
Okay, everybody. Well, thank you very much for finding us here on Zoom. And again, I'll send you another link next week, another Zoom link for our first class meeting where we'll have discussion about the reading and the writing, and we'll go from there. Stay safe, everybody, and see you all next week.